We are back, and we've got our first ever guest appearance. Matt the Tiger Striebel, El Tigre.
I'm just shocked you have that helmet doesn't normally sit there, right? This is for dramatic effect and to really...
Are you asking me if there's a green Whole Foods bag right over there where I put all that stuff in it and took it down this morning to set it up? Yes, I did. It's right over there.
I'm just
off camera.
I'm just impressed you still have gear, frankly.
These gloves, this helmet, and this. That's it. Everything else has been raffled off at a Trilogy camp over the years. Literally everything else.
I'm sad I got rid of the gloves, the Riptide gloves, but I do have my LA Riptide helmet, and I'm never going to give that up. That's like the one thing that I'm like, no, never giving this one up.
Never. Yep. Same for me. These are the actually, no, this is it. I'm giving everything else away.
So that stick that I'm seeing in the background, just to be clear, are you bringing that to spring break training, or am I to be expected just to leave you my stick, or you just take over my stick and that's how it's going to work?
I was wondering whether I was going to go to Dick's Sporting Goods and possibly buy a stick before I came down to impress you, or if I was just going to do the classic. I'll take whatever's in the box.
No, through our fantastic partnership with PAL, you will have a stick waiting for you. But I'll expect you just to take my stick and string it how you want it and tape it how you want it, and then I'll just have to deal with the repercussions of it being to your liking and not mine.
And it'll be perfect.
Yeah. All right, Mitch.
Well, the reason why we've brought in the big guns for this one, and now I'm outnumbered 2-1 by Tigers, is we've got a big matchup coming up March 15th, which is absurdly early for Cornell-Princeton. We are playing, this is like getting past the 100-year mark. The first matchup ever, April 11th, 1922. So we're looking at the 103rd year of play together. But as everyone knows, this is a very important game.
Yes.
Because it's best of 87. Everyone knows best of 87 is most important. It's 42 for Princeton, 42 for Cornell, and 2 ties. So this is it. Game 87, baby.
It's amazing. I had this thought when Andrew sent the email, this is what we're going to be talking about, where I was like, I think that if I were to actually do the math, the people who are playing at Princeton now care as much as I did about the like, when were the Cornell teams that won championships? Like, in my head, when I was in college, that was like the 1800s. And so I'm imagining these guys at Cornell and Princeton now who are like, 2001. They weren't even born in 2001, right? This is where we are.
Yeah, it was like the late 80s. Cornell was really good. And then like the early 70s. Those were like the 2 time frames that they had their most success in the NCAA era. And yeah, I mean, you hear about those guys, but you didn't really... It would seem like a long time ago, which is funny. And now we're like closer to the 1922 guys than we are to the current team.
I think before we get into the game, to take a trip down memory lane, I think my 2 favorite anecdotes are both from you two. You, Streams, when you were a coach, as it relates to Trilogy and to camps. So if you'll humor us with that. And then Mitch's 1-2 combo that involves... your freshman year when we whacked you.
That was actually my senior year of high school.
Oh, that's right. That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah. When you were on your recruiting trip, and then the following year. So if you'll entertain us with those 2 stories, I would certainly get some enjoyment out of it, and our avid loyal listeners and watchers, I'm sure would as well.
Yeah, so I mean, this goes back. I think to set the groundwork effectively, I've got to go all the way back to sophomore year. I'm working summer camp at Princeton, and at the end of the week, it wasn't uncommon for parents from certain affluent areas in the lacrosse playing world to like literally give you tips for having, and I mean like cash tips, money for having spent the week with their son. Yeah, exactly. So I'm finishing up, this week of camp, and this mom gives me $100, and I was like, of course, I was like, oh, I can't take this. Secretly in my head, I'm like, that's going to get me back to Massachusetts with gas money and possibly something to eat.
Possibly
and
a
she's
second
like, no.
or third tiger-themed bucket hat.
Second or third tiger-themed bucket hat. And she's like, no, trust me, I live with my son. I know what you've been through. Now, her son happened to be this kid that we had at camp who was like my favorite camper. And we gave him the nickname. I don't know who gave it to him, where it started, but he quickly became Joey Bag of Donuts. So Joey Bag of Donuts is the camper of the week. He's on my team. We win the camp championship, whatever. He's the best. He's my favorite kid at camp. Fast forward now to, I don't know, it's probably however many years later, I'm back coaching at Princeton.
Probably like 7 or 8 years.
2005.
Right?
Yeah. It was after I graduated. It was the following year. So I think it was 2005 or 05 or 06.
Yeah. So I'm back coaching at Princeton, and it's Cornell week. So it's, we're prepping for the Big Red, and it was, I'm not gonna pump Ryan's tires any more than they need to be pumped, but this is Ryan's first year not as part of the the Princeton program, and the cupboard wasn't entirely bare, but there were some gaps that weren't going to be filled by some of the people we had. So we're getting ready for this week, and my job as an assistant coach is to basically go through the Cornell offensive play set and install these offenses with our scout team. So we're running these scout offenses, and it was like Tambo's like big, umbrella set, the 3 midfielders up top. It was Justin Red, Joe Belucas, like all these. You guys were fantastic that year. I think, was that your Final Four year or the next year?
No, 2005 was the year we ended up losing to UMass in the first round. UMass had a big upset, and then they went over us, and then went to the championship.
The finals.
With Sean Morris, with guys like Sean Morris and
Jack Reed.
Yeah, they had a good team.
Jake Dean.
Yeah, they were solid.
Yeah. So, but anyway, you guys were you were basically in the early stages of that really good run that you guys had when you were there. And so we're installing this scout offense during the week, and we had this guy, Mike DeSantis, who was on the Princeton team at the time, hysterical. And so we started naming all the plays after Walt Disney animated movies, right? So we had, The Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, and these were these different sets that you guys ran, different plays, whatever. And it was one of these situations, and that year we had more than a few, where the scout team was just kind of dismantling the first team D. Like, it was not going well, and Coach T wasn't happy. And so it was like, okay, let's run Little Mermaid. And it was like, goal, whatever, killing it. At the end of the week, we're getting ready to go up to Ithaca, and Coach T, we're in the office, and he's like, this could be an ugly one. So sure enough, we get to, Sholkoff. It's like the tundra. I don't even know where we are. It's the worst place in America. So anyway, it's freezing. I'm standing on the sideline. I'm miserable. And it's like the game starts. And I always, when I coached, I sort of took the end opposite Metzi and T. So there was not too much just destructive mental energy about to kill me. So I'm down on the far end of the bench, and I've got the whole scout team offense in their parkas, the gross part. Remember those awful whatever they were that we had back then? Yeah. So they're wearing that stuff, and I just hear DeSantis and the crew. They're like, uh-oh, Little Mermaid, goal. And then they're like, uh-oh, Pocahontas, goal. And it's like they're just running through them, right? Oh, Hercules, this is Hercules, goal. And it's whatever the score is, it's 16-3 at the end of the game. And so we're going through the line, and I'm at the back of the line, and Coach, it's me, Bryce, Metzi, and then Coach T's all the way at the back of the line, but definitely close enough that my good games or whatever great jobs are being overheard by Coach T, 4 people behind me. And I'm going through the line, and meanwhile, right, I'd spent the whole week watching Joe Belucas on tape, just he'd killed Syracuse the game before. So I've been watching him the whole week, and I get to Joe Belucas in line, and I look at him, and it's like we have this just eye contact across the years, and I just go, Joey Bag of Donuts? he goes, Coach Streams? And we just start laughing and hugging in the line. And meanwhile, I'm like, I'm not gonna turn around and look at Coach T, because if I do, he's gonna murder me, because I'm having this glorious reunion with Joey Bag of Donuts after getting completely waxed by Cornell up in Ithaca. Yeah, so that was probably the highlight of my coaching year that year.
Yeah, that was.
Did you know the Joey Bag of Donuts story?
Oh yeah,
you've
yeah,
heard
I've
it.
heard that.
You haven't heard it.
It's great.
Our
It's been
fact-
polished. It's been polished over the years.
Producer and fact checker Andrew Goldberg. I think this is his first time having heard the Joey Bag of Donuts.
And just the calls. Pocahontas!
But that came on the heels of 2003, where I was a high school senior.
Yeah.
Signed, sealed, committed, ready to go to Cornell. So excited. I go up to Cornell for my first time seeing them, not in a fall. I went to recruiting visits my senior year, fall, and then committed after that. And so spring I'm playing high school lacrosse, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go watch Cornell. They're taking on Princeton. This is going to be great. And I think you guys must have beat them 16-2 or 17-2. And they're laughing on the field, jogging on. I think Ryan had 9 points. And they're just yucking it up, and I'm like, "Oh God, what is going on?"
Ryan, was that your sophomore year or your junior year?
My junior year.
Junior year, okay.
Junior year, yeah.
And then that just in that 2004 when we were in Princeton, it was you remember them laughing at us, laughing on our field. Coach Tambroni used that. That was bulletin board material. So RB snickering after dropping 10 on Cornell was enough motivation. And we just eked it out with an OT win.
Laughing
at us. They're laughing at me.
Mitch, I feel like it has to be said, despite my attire here, I really am, as usual in our typical Goldilocks fashion, I am kind of in the middle of the Cornell-Princeton rivalry because I spent so many years with you guys down at the Sevens tournament in Houston and am basically an honorary member of that Cornell team.
We've kind of pulled you away from the dark side towards the Force.
We don't need to make that public information. We don't need to make that public information.
Tambroni on the U.S. team, and then all the guys down in Houston and at the Drew Webb Memorial Tournament. Yeah, we've certainly got our big red paws into Striebes and have started to win him over. So he's actually wearing a big red thong, but we can't show it out.
Yeah, I still have my big red jersey, but it was too many bags of t-shirts to go through to find it to put underneath my sleeveless Tiger shirt.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about this year's game 87 for the big matchup. Thoughts, takeaways. Cornell's attack, electric. Hugh Kelleher, monster. But then Princeton's got some decent players too, I've heard. No Matt Striebels or Ryan Boyles, but that Maxey kid's pretty good. And I got to see Palumbo play this summer in box. He's really turned it on recently.
I think the biggest thing for me is you look at their first month, right? And they played 4 top 10 teams, right? 3-1 at the time of filming this. They just went down to North Carolina and swept Duke and North Carolina, which are huge out of conference wins. And your out of conference schedules, fine. But having those 2 wins that they've kind of banked along with the Penn State win, I think what impressed me is the steal of not the steal of winning, stealing games, more the steal, the grit in terms of playing top competition for a full month and just what that preparation does kind of leading into the Ivy League. It's very reminiscent, I think, of the heydays, the glory days, if you will, of that first month of the season. You don't have as much practice time, right? Yeah. Ivy League restrictions. And just getting thrown right into the fire. And it's whether you're ready or not, it's you're playing against the top teams in the country.
We had to have a hard strength of schedule because there was less games too when we played, right?
And there's just a figure it out. And those games are going to be tight. You look at the overtime winner against Penn State, and then both the games against Duke and North Carolina being.
So UNC was missing Metzbauer to run the scout team Little Mermaids.
Yeah, so just those. Those games being tight ones, I think that's going to, I think in my mind, just kind of pay dividends kind of moving forward in terms of being comfortable, if you will, in situational play, in late game scenarios, and kind of things like that. So I think you look at the recent history of the Cornell-Princeton games all being pretty tight, going back to last year, 1-goal game. Where
an insane one, instant classic. I was watching that at the
not
airport.
An instant
spring
classic.
Break training.
It was an instant. I was watching. I think after it was over, close the iPad or turn the TV. And I was just walking around the apartment just like steaming.
There were opportunities, man.
Steaming. My wife's like, "What is wrong?" Like, and I'm like, just like rumbling to myself. So
I was dancing to the Phoenix airport, welcoming teams to spring break. Yes, come.
So I think like the experience over the last month, I think is gonna be kind of pay dividends.
I think the other thing too, looking at Princeton over the last couple years, I think if you're gonna have one gripe about them, it is their performance in those games where they're matching up against an ACC team or a team that's potentially more athletic or a team that's, is like in that upper echelon. They've had a tendency to kind of come up short, right? Last year, what did they end up doing down when they were down doing the Tobacco Road swing? Were they 0-2 last year, 1-1? But it's like, I think this year getting both those wins, there's a toughness that I saw watching the Carolina game. There's a toughness to the team, I think, offensively that is encouraging, just as you said, in terms of like executing late game stages. My big concern, and I think looking at where Cornell's strength is, right, with Kirst and their offense, I still have questions defensively about what kind of synergy between our personnel and the approach and whether, it's like when you're playing against Carolina and the game's up and down and you can sort of make a couple of mistakes defensively because you're going to make them back up on the offensive end. The Princeton D, I think it's going to be a tough look against this Cornell offense, and I'm curious to see if they're going to rein it in a little bit, maybe not extend as much as they have in the past. I don't know. That to me is the big area of concern for the Tigers.
Well, I think you guys both said like toughness and grittiness, and no offense to either of you, but like I feel like Princeton's kind of like ethos and MO has been skill, right? And that's where when you guys have been at your best, it's been skill based, and now you guys have the skill and the grit. Kind of that team it feels like that's a little bit of a different, and when you have both of those things, that's when you have a lot of success. And I think, that's where this I think is going to be a one possession game.
I just always mentally prepare myself anytime someone says no offense, but just like, okay, well, I'm about to get insulted.
Well, here comes I'm going to be offended.
It's like, no offense, but like, okay, I'm about to be offended.
No offense, but you're an idiot.
Okay, can I ask you guys like a general college lacrosse question? Because this is something that I've been.
You're our guest, so you can do whatever you want, apparently.
Okay, so one of the things that I think is interesting, right? So did either of you watch the Cuse Harvard game?
I actually did not. No, I watched the Harvard Colgate game. Was the game I was thinking of. I didn't watch Cuse Harvard.
Okay, so I was at the Mass Youth Lacrosse Convention.
I haven't watched a Harvard game.
No, so I was at the Mass Youth Lacrosse Convention with Jerry Byrne, and we were talking about sort of his approach at Harvard. And one of the things that I've noticed about what he's doing is he still plays a pretty disciplined, tight, sliding type of defense. And in that Cuse game, they went down like 6-0 in the first hot second of the game. They didn't win they maybe won 2 faceoffs the entire game, but they played consistent, steady, disciplined, kind of packed in when they could be, but supportive defense. And they end up winning that game 15-14 because unless the game is ragged, Cuse has a hard time in settled situations. Now, I'm watching Princeton play, and they're kind of really extending to the edges of the box. They're chasing guys around. They're getting beat topside. There's a lot of the sort of principles that we had 20 years ago that have obviously changed as the game has adapted were missing from the defense. But I'm thinking, right, why are so many teams extending in college lacrosse where you now have a shot clock, which is going to increase the number of possessions anyway? Doesn't it seem to you that, like, playing more of a conservative defense is actually more beneficial in a shot clock era?
I also feel like guys are so skilled now. Like, you can't run zone because guys are just so good at finding the seams.
You can still run zone,
but you can run it like the packed in conservative. And I think a lot of it comes down to goaltending. Guys can shoot so well from the outside, but like if you have a good goalie and you can pack it in and count on him making some big saves, I agree. I think that's like because of teams are so skilled now offensively. Guys are so one-on-one offensively skilled. It's like if you beat your man, you're getting a good look, or you're going to move the ball 2 times quickly and get a great look. So I would think that a conservative style of defense would be effective. But if you got, the monsters on defense that can chase guys and recover, maybe you feel like, okay, we can put some pressure on teams and they'll make. I just feel like at the top tier, teams will not crumble under that pressure.
I mean, you still see teams like Denver kind of packing in pretty tight. You still see zone defense a lot, like situationally coming up timeouts, end of quarter, specifically to try to like disrupt offense and make them rely on kind of ball movement and like if not all the offensive guys are on the same page in terms of how they're approaching a zone defense, if one guy's like IQ doesn't like calibrate with everybody's, it can kind of throw a wrench in things. I think the issue when you don't apply any sort of ball pressure, if you're not getting out any at all, if you just kind of sit back with the shot clock, you're basically enabling a team to kind of get into their sets very smoothly, very comfortably, and kind of generate the shot that ultimately they're looking for and they want. And I think as stick evolution, as sticks have evolved, as technology's involved, and there's so many guys now that can shoot from the outside, like if you give a guy a comfortable look without any sort of ball pressure, like that's just a lot of pressure
on your exact guy you want shooting.
And it's the exact guy you want. And there's just a lot of pressure on your goalie. And I think like on top of that, allowing guys to get more shots off on, then you're enabling guys to get into a little bit more of a rhythm from a shooting perspective, and then also the opportunity for rebounds and multiple possessions, multiple shots within one possession, which are incredibly difficult to defend. So I think that's part of what
back in my day against Princeton, we would defend for 8 to 12 minutes at a time.
Well, but part of that is like the opponent, like how many guys had a hard outside shot?
Right. Yeah.
Like you look at them,
you knew who they were every time.
It'd be like a guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
but
two guys,
I mean, it's
like
still,
on the team, not like a guy or two on the attack unit. And a guy or two within the midfield unit and like the second midfield unit. I just think like as the game has evolved, so many guys now can kind of bring it from range, whereas that was not the case historically.
I think the other thing is, to your point, Rise, I think coaches are more creative now about getting guys on the field wherever, like the whole buzz around positionless lacrosse. But it's like Princeton against Carolina, it's like they had like 6 goals from 7 guys or 7 goals from 6 guys in the first half of that game, because they're doing a really good job of bringing guys on, putting them in the positions where they can succeed, whether or not they're a midi and attackman. They're just sort of getting them out there. Whereas then you look on the other side and it's like Carolina, it's like maybe they're relying on 2 or 3 guys. I think one of the interesting things about the Princeton Cornell matchup is going to be, sort of this paradigm of like, okay, you have Kirst on the one hand, and then you have like the group of guys on the Princeton team who are going to be hopefully cumulatively putting that pressure on the Cornell defense versus Kirst, who's just like constantly. I mean, it's like he could go for 6 goals in any second.
Or every game up until against Richmond. Yeah. No, I think goaltending is going to play a major factor in this matchup. I think whatever goalie saves over 50% is probably going to have the edge here.
And Princeton could trade 1 for 1 from a Kirst perspective with Mackesy. I think the Princeton offense, in my biased opinion, is just deeper.
Deeper, definitely.
It's deeper, but we still have that guy. It's Mackesy. But like to the point of like the range, it's like Mackesy, Kabiri, Palumbo, Tucker Wade. I mean, that shot, I don't know if you guys saw the highlight of that one shot where it was like
change planes, kind of like sidearm.
Changed angles. Yeah. Like completely changed angles. Like just
Tom Trevor effect, I think.
The level of skill, on display.
Or his dad. When I switched to midfield, I will say there was a lot of Ryan Wade film that was digested just watching like a classic OG midi who could play lacrosse. I mean, Tucker Wade's dad could definitely get it done. Who's that? What is it? Is it Kramer? I mean, the guy who's like 6'5", the midi, who had he came out on the field and I was like, that's the largest Princeton human being I've ever seen, and just like hammered the righty high to high opposite side. And I was like, oh, that's nice to have. That's not something you've seen in the Princeton midfield for the last couple of years.
All right, what are the stakes here? What is on the line for the winner of this game?
I mean, obviously, Mitch, I'm sending this out there
I was
right
gonna
to you.
say,
You're gonna have
like-
to
But
wear
the
it.
sad part is that looks awesome. You look like what's the guy from the Tiger? What's the Tiger King's name?
that was when I came
Joe
down.
Tiger?
Joe
Exotic.
Joe
Joe
Exotic.
Exotic.
Joe
Tiger.
Exotic. That's me. That's me.
So, yeah, I mean, there's the outfit.
I mean, yeah, but I'm pumped to wear it. Is the sad? Like I kind of want to wear that
okay.
anyway.
So we need something a little bit more.
I want to get like the onesie like zip up like bear costume. I'll get you guys onesie zip up bear costumes you got to wear for a full day. It's kind of nice.
That's got spring break training written all over it.
Yeah, you got to wear a full day at spring break training. 80 degrees in Arizona. Just
yeah. Stewing in the bear costume. Yeah,
I feel like this is just a Halloween costume.
well,
Just
it doubles up. It doubles up. It's a good 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah. All right.
And then a donation to the opposing team's program. Make it.
Ooh,
We'll put some philanthropy on the line. It could be a small
Oh.
one, but donation.
I'll donate my sick medallion to the Cornell Lacrosse team. I think this was $7.
What's the
on
street
Amazon.
value on that thing?
I think I'm just going to record a voice note of me laughing and then just send it to the coaching staff, and they can just have that for bulletin board material moving forward.
Oh my God. Yep.
No, all right. So some philanthropy. Okay, so it'll be a donation to the other.
Philanthropy and a day of wearing the other team's costume, or
I'm
some
down.
kind of like apparel, full day of apparel.
I'm in.
All right, man. It's a bet.
All right, let's go Tigers. I don't want to wear a bear costume in Naples, Florida for a full
That's
day.
going to be a hard one to explain. As well.
Tiger, I could fit right in. Tiger King,
Yep.
be right in there.